Yo! Hey, oh, what's that weird line of light? Get rid of that. Yo, how's it going today, guys? How you all doing today? It's going pretty well for me. Can't complain. It was a busy day. Had a little bit of stuff to do. Oh gosh, that line's gonna be so annoying, isn't it? Is there any way I can get rid of that? Maybe that'll work. But yeah, no, I did a little bit of Hebrew. As you guys know, I'm trying to get through learning beginning biblical Hebrew this summer. So that's fun. Well, I mean, it's not all that bad. It's definitely pretty hard, but we're getting through it at the very least. And then I went to work for the pretty much rest of the day until about an hour ago. I went to the gym, showered, and now I'm ready to come back here and talk about all this good stuff. What about you guys? What about you guys? You guys get up to anything interesting this week? You guys get up to anything particularly interesting? Anything with school, work, anything like that? It's good to see you guys, though. Sparky, it's good to see you, man. You still out and about traveling? I know last time you stopped by, you were moving to a different country, so you still out there? It's good to see you, man. Appreciate you stopping by. And I know it's probably a crazy hour of the morning for you, so it means even more that you're stopping by. Makes it even more special. But yeah, man. Oh, you're back in town. Okay. So how long you been back for? Been back for just a little bit or for a while? But yeah, man, that's crazy. Just a little bit? Okay. So since you've been back, you've been playing zombies again and everything? Or has it been a bit? Because I'm going to be honest, it's been like a month or two, probably longer, since I've last played zombies. Although, I am going to be playing zombies here in a bit, because I told everybody that once we get to 100 followers on the channel, that I'm going to do a round 100 run. So, yeah, I got to do a round 100 run on some zombies map when we hit 100 followers. So that'll be fun. I'm going to be mad rusty for that run, so I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do it, but I'm going to try my best. Honestly, I haven't been able to play too much at all. Oh, dude, you know, they watch everything that everybody says. They're watching everyone and everything. That's just how it is. What can you do? It is crazy, man. Dude, did you know, in Canada's crazy right now. So if you live in Canada, if you're a pastor or like a priest or anything like that, you have to give a script of your sermon every single week to the local government so that they can read over it before you preach it. And if you don't do that, they'll arrest you. And if you have things in there that they don't like, they'll arrest you. So it's a little bit crazy. And they're doing that for all the news outlets too, like all the news channels and all the journalists and everything like that too. So yeah, dude, they watching everything. They censoring everything too. Pretty soon it's going to be illegal to be a Christian like pretty much everywhere you go. It's crazy. Any kind of religion's going to be illegal soon, probably. Exactly, man. We up. That's what I'm talking about. I gotcha. But yeah, man, the world can be going to crap, but as long as we are up, that's all that matters. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, man. Well, it's good to see you. You want to stop by for some Bible study today? Also, Sparky, what kind of games you been playing recently? I know it's been a while, but Tuesday nights we're doing game nights now. So like party game nights. So anybody can join in on them. So like for example, we played Among Us last Tuesday. Anybody was able to join. It was just open lobbies, stuff like that. And then I think we're going to play Jackbox next week, if I remember right. Something like that. Fall Guys, like other big party games that anybody can join in on. So I don't know if you're interested in joining in on any of those, but I'd love to have you in on them. No more games, bro, just grind. I mean, I feel you, man. The only night that I play games anymore is Tuesday nights for stream. I don't play games otherwise. I mean, I wake up every morning, I do Hebrew for like 2 hours, and then I go to the gym for an hour or so, and then I work for like 8-10 hours, and then I come back either to stream or go to bed. So, I feel ya. The only night I play games is just Tuesday night for stream. It is what it is. Dude, you're doing MMA now. Oh man, that's awesome. I wish I could get... dude, if I had time, I would absolutely get into MMA. Or like any kind of fighting, like boxing or something. Yeah, man. Dude, if I could get... like, if I had the time to do boxing or MMA or something like that, I would absolutely add that to my schedule. I just don't have time right now. Dude, you're out here living the Fight Club fantasy. You ever seen that movie? Dude, I mean, Fight Club's a classic. Of course you have to have seen Fight Club. Fight Club's where it's at. What a good movie. What a movie. So what time is it for you right now, out of curiosity? Just out of curiosity. Also, sorry, I'm trying to do something in the background while we trying to set up for everything right now. Trying to set up for stream. I lived it for a little bit until I sleep for 4 days with... So nice. Oh, dude, it's like 2 a.m. for you? Oh, man. Dude, I can't be keeping you up at these wee hours, especially if you're on that grind. You gotta get that 8 hours of sleep so that your muscles recover, so that you know, if you get the 8 hours of sleep every night, then your muscles recover faster, your stamina improves, all that good stuff. I've been trying to get the 8 hours, but literally tripping? Like, how so? Just out of curiosity. I feel like that can mean like 8 different things. If you do want to join us for Bible study, I'm going to start here in a sec. I'll pray us in real quick here in a minute, and then I'll read over the passage if you want to join us. We're doing Genesis 29, I believe. Yeah, Genesis 29. Well, Genesis 29 and 30. So yeah, if you want to join us for that. How much you weigh? I'm about 200 right now. Like a little bit under 195, 200. So I'm getting up there. Slowly getting up there. One of these days I'm going to get to that 2-plate bench. One of these days. It's a little ways away. I'm also 6'1", so 200 pounds at 6'1" isn't a ton. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm definitely not lean. But I'm not like fat either. Like, I'm trying to bulk right now, so I'm not lean because I definitely have quite a bit of fat. But I definitely want to bulk for a little bit longer. Just 180. Okay. Yeah, I was at 180 a couple months ago on my bulk, and now I'm kind of now I'm at a little bit of a better spot. So yeah, I'm gonna try and stay at like that 200 mark for a little bit, and then or maybe I'll probably go up a little bit. I'll probably try and gain a little bit more weight, and then after that maintain for a while, something around there. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I'm somewhere in that range. But yeah, man, it's good to see you stop by. Good to see you. I'm gonna pray us in real quick. Sparky, you have anything you want prayer for right now? Anything in your life? Anyone else that you're praying for at the moment? Gotta catch 260 fast. I gotcha, man. Dude, 260 would be massive. I couldn't imagine, like, the shoulders and the chest you'd have at 260. But yeah, Chad, if you got anything you want prayer for, I'm gonna pray us in real quick, and then we can get into this passage. I've got a little bit of a couple things to be praying for, but I'll add them into the prayer. Ugh. But yeah, I can pray us in real quick, and then I'll read over the passage, and we'll get into it. So, Father in heaven, thank you so much for today. I thank you for the beautiful day outside. Even if it was a little bit hot, I appreciate it nonetheless. I appreciate you for gathering all of us here to be able to dive into your word here on this stream, being able to learn more about you and become closer to you. I pray that me and everybody else who stops by, that you might be guiding our tongues and our actions to be able to speak the things that you would have us speak and to notice the things that you would have us notice, and that we all might learn something out of this today and take something new with us into our daily lives. I thank you for calling me to put this together and to bring everybody here, and I thank you so much for everybody here, everybody who helps me out with it, and everybody who shows up. I appreciate every single one of them. And I pray that you will use me as your tool to further your kingdom in this world, one small step at a time. Please help me to be able to say all of the right things and to do all of the right things here, so that I might speak things that are honoring unto you and to your name. I pray for all those who can't make it tonight, for Evan, who is a little bit sick, and for Jake, who is on vacation. And I thank you so much for both of them, and even though they're not able to be here, their absence will be missed. And I thank you so much for everyone else who helps me out with this thing. And yeah, pray all these things in your name. Amen. Anyone else here? Not right now. Evan is feeling under the weather, so he might come a little bit later, but he said it was going to be kind of like up to a couple things. So we'll see what happens with him. Jake's on vacation, so he won't be here. We might have Dietrich or Gavin join us, potentially, or Kirsten, but I'm not entirely sure. We'll see in a second. But I'll read us in real quick. Let me swap over to our Bible. Here we go. Oh, also, before we get started, a couple things to announce. Let me put them in the chat. I got a fight in Vegas soon. Wait, are you in America right now, Sparky? Are you like Las Vegas, Nevada? I thought you were still in Europe. But yeah, before I read the passage, a couple announcements to make real quick. If you weren't here, we started a new thing a couple weeks ago, a weekly challenge. And if you want to see it, you can type in the exclamation point thing. I'll do it real quick. So last week's challenge was ask someone how you can be praying for them. And if you did it, that's awesome. I'd love to hear about it, and how it affected the person that you were speaking with, and how it affected you, and how God worked through the situation. But starting tonight, there's a new challenge that you have the rest of the week to do up until next Wednesday, and that is to simply donate to a good cause. And it could be anything from $1 all the way to as high as you want to go. All right, so that's the challenge for this week up until next Wednesday, right, is to just donate to any cause that you find is worth donating to. It could be a church, it could be an organization like the Red Cross or Samaritan's Purse or the Samaritan Army, like anything. Like you could find any organization, any charity, any church, or even if it's just like somebody that you know who needs money, just donate to a good cause. Even if it's just $1, right? Even if it's just $1 that you donate, that's the weekly challenge for this week up until next Wednesday. And if you want to talk to us about your end of the challenge, let us know. I mean, I'm going to be doing the same thing sometime during this week. I'm going to do the challenge as well, and I'll tell you guys about it if I feel God is calling me to tell it to you guys. And this is just our way of being a community of believers who helps do some good in the world. So if you want to join us in doing some good in the world, there we go. That's your way of doing it. Also, we are doing a charity donation goal. As you can see, what is that? Up this way? Or, yeah, up here. So this is the donation goal we have right now. Let me type in the thing into the chat. So this is the charity that we are, or this is what we're raising money for. It's not an organization in of itself. It's just a service project that me and my friends do every Christmas. We try to gather as much goods and as much money as possible to be able to donate it to the less fortunate, and to the homeless and to the sick in our local city. And it's a thing that we have started to do. So if you feel like you want to donate to that cause, we would very much appreciate it. And we have a couple things that we want to give back to you guys if we do reach any of our goals. But yeah, so that's going on. We're trying to raise as much money as possible to give to the homeless and the less fortunate in our city. So if you feel so obliged to give to that, we would love that. If not, prayer is well enough. You know, I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe if you guys are praying for it, that it will still go great. So, but yeah, that's the announcements. I just wanted to get those out of the way real quick before we got into the passage. But yeah, so Sparky, who are you fighting? I'm curious. While I'm getting the response for that, let me start reading the passage. It's a longer one, so I got to get into it real quick. So if you want to read along with us, it is Genesis 29:1 to Genesis 30, verse 24. So it's all of Genesis chapter 29 and the first half of Genesis chapter 30. So if you want to read along with us and pull it up on your own, you can do that. Otherwise, it'll be on the screen. So Pokemon community game? Yeah, dude, Sparky, have you not played it before? Yeah, Sparky, if you want to play the community game, oh gosh, I forget the command. I think it's like ! Poke start or something like that. I forget how to start playing the game. But yeah, it's fun. I like playing it. I think it's a fun thing we can do in chat. It's a thing we've had for a little while now. Oh gosh, I forget the commands. I think if you go to the About section of the channel, there should be a widget that shows you how to play the game, I believe. The guy's big though? Like, how big are we talking? That's what I gotta know. Oh, also, before I read it, let me give you a recap on last week. So, actually, I'll pull it up real quick. So we did the second half of Genesis 28, which is Jacob's dream at Bethel. So in this dream, Jacob, or I guess before Jacob's dream, right, he is leaving his family because his brother wants to kill him because he stole his birthright, and he's going off to his father's, or to his mother's homeland to just live, right? He's fleeing from his family and where they're living back to the homeland, right? Where his father came, or from where his grandfather came from and where his mother came from. So Abraham and Rebecca. So he's going back there, and on the way when he's in the wilderness, he goes to sleep for the night, and God meets him in a dream, right? And in this dream, God gives this blessing to Jacob, and he says, hey, I am with you, I will protect you, I will make your offspring great, and all the families of the earth shall be blessed through you. And he sees it through this ladder going to heaven and back with angels ascending and descending on it. And from that point, after the vision, Jacob essentially says, like, hey, I'm going to devote my life to you, and now I know that you are with me, and I will devote 1/10 of everything that I make back to you. And we talked about how that relates to tithing and what we do as Christians today. But so now, starting here in chapter 29, we are getting to the point where Jacob actually makes it back to his grandfather's, Abraham's land. So starting here in chapter 29, verse 1. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field and 3 flocks of sheep lying there beside it. For out of that well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep and put the stone back in its place on the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where do you come from?" They said, "We are from Haran." He said to them, "Do you know Laban, son of Nahor?" And real quick, Laban is Rebekah's brother, Jacob's uncle. They said, "We do." And he said to them, "Is it well with him?" "Yes," they replied. "And here is his daughter Rachel coming with the sheep." He said, "Look, it is still broad daylight. It is not time for the animals to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go, pasture them." But they said, "We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep." While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. Now when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughters of his mother's brother Laban, and the sheep of his mother's brother Laban, Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of his mother's brother Laban. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman, and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. When Laban heard the news about his sister's son Jacob, he ran to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was graceful and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went in to her. Laban gave her his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her maid. When morning came, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" Laban said, "This is not done in our country, giving the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years." Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as a wife. Laban gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her maid. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. He served Laban for another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Reuben, for she said, "Because the Lord has looked on my affliction, surely now my husband will love me." She conceived again and bore a son, and said, "Because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also," and she named him Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son, and said, "Now this time my husband will be joined to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore he was named Levi." She conceived again and bore a son, and said, "This time I will praise the Lord." Therefore she named him Judah. Then she ceased bearing. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister, and she said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I shall die." Jacob became very angry with Rachel and said, Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" Then she said, "Here is my maid Bilhah. Go into her, that she may bear upon my knees, and that I too may have children through her." So she gave him her maid Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went in to her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, "God has judged me, and has also heard my voice, and given me a son." Therefore she named him Dan. Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "With mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed." So she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Then Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah said, "Good fortune," so she named him Gad. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah said, "Happy am I, for the women will call me happy." So she named him Asher. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" Rachel said, "Then he may lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he lay with her that night. And God heeded Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Then Leah said, "God has given me my hire, because I have gave my maid to my husband." So she named him Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and she bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, God has endowed me with a good gift. Now my husband will honor me, because I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. Afterwards she bore a daughter, and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God heeded her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son, and said, "God has taken away my reproach." And she named him Joseph, saying, "May the Lord add to me another son." Alright, so that was long. Let me get caught up with you guys. You look like Taylor Swift, but like a man. Dude, that's I think I'm gonna take that as a compliment. You know, I think I'm just barely gonna take that as a compliment that I'm Taylor Swift but a man. I like it. Shalom to you, Altus. It's good to see you, man. Such a great story. Yeah, dude, this is a good one. I think I have a lot to say from this story that I haven't seen previously, that I have seen on this new read through that we've been doing together on the stream. Like all these things about generational sin and like repeating stories, parallelisms and stuff like that, which I think is going to be pretty cool. Judah the Snitch. Oh gosh, we're going to have to get into that. What does that mean? Oh, so this thing that he put in, the 4 letters at the top with the exclamation points, that is shalom. It's the Hebrew word shalom, which means like peace or greetings or like, you know, stuff like that. Shalom, my homies. The mandrakes, the buying of the husband without deceit. So much. Yeah, no, absolutely. So what are you guys' first thoughts on it? I just read through like a whole bunch, but what do you guys notice first off? Because I can talk about quite a bit. I think there's 2 main things that I have to talk about. But there's other things that I have to kind of mention as well. So in English, it would be sounded out like this. It's technically written like this in English, the second one, but the first one is how you would like actually pronounce it out. So it's shalom, right? Not shalom, shalom is how you would say it. So like since Hebrew is written backwards, the W looking thing is the sh sound. The second one, the weird zigzag, is an L. And then the like just line is an accent for the O. And then the box at the end is the final form like M. So it's written backwards in that way. But yeah, good stuff. Good to see all you guys. Sparky, this is Altus. I don't know if you guys have met yet. But yeah, so we started off. We get Jacob coming back. I don't think Jacob has ever been in his grandfather's homeland yet, Abraham's homeland. I think this is his first time probably ever being there. And like I said, Laban, right? We've heard of Laban before. He is Jacob's uncle, which means that Leah and Rachel are actually Jacob's cousins. So Jacob's marrying 2 of his first cousins in this chapter, right? So Rachel and Leah are Jacob's cousins. Laban is his uncle, and Rebecca, right, is Laban's sister, so his mom. And this is like Abraham's family and descendants, right? So that's like the family tree type looking thing. I could probably pull that up on Paint real quick, but I feel like it's probably not complicated enough for me to be able to do that. Maybe once we get to like Joseph and all of them, like the 12 sons, maybe then it would be better to have like a... Actually, I guess I could Google real quick. Abraham family tree. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Alright, so here's probably a good picture. Maybe not. Let's do... Okay, yeah, this one's probably a good one. How, can you guys see this one? Oh, I'll have to move it a little bit so you guys can see it better. Maybe like here? Yeah. So Terah is Abraham's father, right? We don't hear about him very much. We hear about him just like at the beginning of Abraham's story. He marries Sarah and Keturah. Those are Abraham's two wives. Plus Hagar was Sarah's servant. So then the two sons of Abraham are Ishmael and from Hagar, and Isaac from Sarah. But then there's also a lot of other sons from Zilpah that we don't really, or from Keturah that we don't know much about. So then in Abraham's family, right, there's Nahor, with Bethuel, who has Rebecca and Laban. Those are his brother and sister. I do not know what a stunky... I think it's like a skunk, I think it's a skunk Pokemon. I'm not sure, actually. So they're part of Abraham's family, right? Laban and Rebecca. Rebecca marries Isaac, is Jacob's mom. Laban has Rachel and Leah, right? So Jacob is marrying his two first cousins, which actually, that's spelled wrong. I don't think that's how Rachel's spelled. I think it's just E-L. And then, I'll have to move it up here real quick. Jacob gets renamed to Israel, right? God takes Jacob and he says, yeah, actually, that's not your name anymore. Your new name is Israel. And he has 12 sons, which are the 12 patriarchs, which we saw quite a few of them born in this chapter. Plus, we have Dinah, which is a woman. I think it's the only daughter that is it's at least the only mentioned daughter of Jacob. Yeah, so Jacob gets renamed to Israel because he is the father of Israel, right? Because his 12 sons become the 12 tribes of Israel. Kind of. Not all of these 12 become... So, like, for example, one of Jacob's 12 sons is Joseph. But Joseph doesn't become a tribe of Israel. Joseph has two sons, and Joseph's two sons become two of the tribes of Israel. And then one of the other sons of Jacob doesn't become a tribe. I don't remember which one right now. But yeah, so Jacob has 12 sons, and that's why his name is changed to Israel, is because he's the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, essentially. Yeah, so Israel is his name. Yeah. So that's how that works out. But yeah, so that's like kind of the family tree. So whenever we say these names, it should be a better idea of like who these people actually are, right? So, you know, we like recap of these first couple chapters, right? So Jacob makes it into the land, and he meets these people, and he's like, hey, do you know who Laban is? I'm looking for him because he's my family, right? That's who my mom told me to go meet. And on the way, he finds Rachel, his daughter, and he's like, wow, she is hot. She is smoking. I cannot wait to get to know her. Like, that's what's going through his mind, right? He's like, I'm going to marry that woman, right? Even though it's his first cousin. A little bit weird. Anyways, so he gets back to Laban's house, right? So Laban heard the news about his sister's son Jacob, his nephew, And he runs to meet him, and he kisses him, and he brought him into his house, and he's like, I'm going to take you in. You're like my own flesh and bones, so you can be here. But then, Jacob starts working for Laban, right? And Laban says, hey, you're my own flesh and bone. You're not going to work for me for free. What do you want your wages to be? How much do you want? What do you want me to give you? And Jacob, being completely in love for Rachel, he's like, yo, give me her. Can you give me your daughter in like marriage? Because I think she's smoking hot and I want to marry her. So that's what's going through Jacob's mind. And Laban says, hey, you work for me for 7 years, and I'll give it to you. And that's where things start to go bad. But hang on, I'm going to get caught up on chat real quick before we get into the bad crap. Stylebender? Bro, I got to fight with John Jones tomorrow. Oh, wait, are you actually fighting John Jones? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I mean, I'll wish you luck, man. You headed out then? Also, Altus. So, the Dudaim, translated as mandrakes, are just weeds. Like, basically crappy weeds. Yeah, I thought they were weeds. Worst of the worst, just non-valuable plants, which begs the question, why did these buy a night with her husband, who she is already married to? And why does the second wife need to give the first wife permission to sleep with her? I got you, man. Yeah, so I do want to talk about that in a little bit. I don't necessarily have an exact answer to that, but I do want to talk about the relationship between Leah and Rachel and Jacob, because it's not a pretty relationship between him and his two wives. So I do want to get into that. I have like some answers, but maybe not the whole answer. So yeah, all right. So we're at So Jacob says he's going to work for 7 years for his uncle Laban, so that he can marry his daughter Rachel. I got to dip now because it's late. Yeah, man. Honestly, Sparky, I'm so glad you stopped by tonight. I appreciate you. It's been a long time since we got to talk, so I'm very happy you got to stop by and we got to catch up for a little bit. But hope your fight goes well tomorrow. And, dude, honestly, keep in touch. I miss getting to talk to you, so absolutely keep in touch. We'll be here every Tuesday, Wednesday if you want to stop in or in the Discord or anything like that. But I appreciate you stopping by. You gonna start another battle? You already haven't finished the battle with Macho Man, man. So, all right, so yeah. Here's where the crap comes in, right? So Laban pulls a sneak on Jacob. And after 7 years of working for him, Laban gives his older daughter Leah to marry Jacob. So on his wedding night, Jacob sleeps with Leah instead of Rachel. And now he's married to Leah, and he confronts Laban about it, and he's like, yo, what's up with this? Why did you deceive me? And Laban's like, that's not our way of doing things. You got to take Leah in marriage. Hey, if you work 7 more years for me, then you can have Rachel. Right? So, of course, Jacob actually works the other 7 years because he loves Rachel and he's going to do it. So he worked 14 years to get Rachel as his wife. Here's the interesting thing to me. This follows the exact trend that we've been seeing in every other member of Abraham's family, right? Like Abraham's family, they have this generational sin of, where is he, Macho Man? Yeah, I don't know. I saw Macho Man last week, but yeah, it's been a bit. But yeah, man, good night, man. I appreciate you stopping by. Keep in touch. So yeah. Like, Abraham, he had problems with lying and deceiving, right? So he lied twice to different kings about his sister, or his wife being his sister, right? And, like, that was the problem that we see Abraham struggled with, was lying and deceiving. And then the exact same thing happened with Isaac, where he repeats the exact same sin of lying about his wife being his sister. And then, of course, we just read like 2 weeks ago about this crazy dispute where Rebekah and Jacob deceive Isaac into giving Jacob the birthright and the blessing, right? So like they devise this whole scheme to deceive each other and like, you know, all this crazy stuff, go behind each other's backs and plan and scheme and ruin each other's lives, and now they all hate each other. They're all split up. And now Laban does the exact same thing. Laban, who's also part of Abraham's family, he's out here doing the exact same thing that all the rest of them have, and he's deceiving Jacob into marrying someone else. You know? Like, Laban's like, oh, well, you know, I could do the right thing and give Jacob my one daughter that he said he wanted, but it would be better for me if I just gave him my older daughter instead. It would look better on me because that's what the people of our country do. So he just deceives his nephew after 7 years of working for him for free, nonetheless, and gives him Leah instead. So Laban is committing the exact same sin of lying and deceiving as the rest of Abraham's family, which is crazy to me. Like, it's like this whole family has this like terrible generational sin of lying and deceiving that they just can't shake, right? So the wedding night is purchased, but the purchase was a deception. He only got his first wife because of deception given for payment. He never wanted the first wife to begin with, but then later the second wife, the one he intended to marry, gives the blessing and she pays, using the first of her sons laboring, to honestly buy her husband without deception and with the full blessings of the parties. Yeah. So then things get, like, worse, right? So now Jacob has 2 wives, right? Which we haven't really talked about this yet because we haven't really seen it yet. I mean, we kind of talked about this whenever it came to Abraham marrying Sarah and then also sleeping with their slave Hagar. But it was a little bit different then because they weren't, like, Hagar wasn't his wife. And Abraham did marry a second time later on, but it was after Sarah died. So after Sarah died, Abraham remarried to Keturah, but that wasn't 2 wives at the same time. And Isaac only had 1 wife as well, but now Jacob here, he does have 2 wives, right? And the problem with that is, well, first of all, the Bible talks about it like marriage being between 1 man and 1 woman, right? Like that was what God intended, and that's how it should be, right? And it's not just because God commands us to do it for no reason, right? Like God doesn't just come up with commands for no reason. God commands, oh, hey, Cole. It's good to see you, man. Good to see you. You stopped in at a good time. I haven't done that one in a while. But yeah, so God intends it to be between 1 man and 1 woman, and he doesn't do that for no reason. Like, he doesn't just make that command because he says so. He does it because there's some reason behind it. And the reason behind it being between 1 man and 1 woman, so it's not multiple women, is because God knew that we would pick favorites. And that's exactly what we see happening here, right? Jacob loved Rachel, and he like it literally says here, so Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. So he served Laban for another 7 years. And when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb. So Leah, or God, is actually showing favor on Leah because he recognizes how unfair Jacob is being between his 2 wives. And we see this happen in so many instances throughout the Bible, where whenever men have more than 1 wife, it almost always, if not always, means that 1 wife is favored over the others, right? And Jacob's doing the same thing here. Jacob is favoring Rachel over Leah, and God is showing pity for her and opening her womb so that, like, she can have kids and Rachel can't. So that maybe she has a bit more of an even playing ground with Rachel. Which is kind of sad, but, you know, but that's why, right? This is why God calls us to such high standards in marriage, is because he knows how much it affects other people when marriage is treated improperly. And I could go on a whole tangent about that. If you guys want to hear me talk about this whole tangent, let me know. Because if I start talking about how God intends for sex and marriage, that's going to take way off of the tracks here. So if you want me to talk about that, tell me in the chat, because that's going to go way off the tracks. I cannot talk about it. We can go further into the passage, but let me know. I just got done with cart classes at the Butler Fair. Oh, so is the Butler Fair still going on, or was that just yesterday? Because I thought that was just yesterday. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Started at 4:30. So are you still at the Butler Fair, or are you back home now? We also have an issue because Jacob is married to the one he proposed to, and then he is falsely given a sister. So now he is already married to two people. He would have to divorce the one he is engaged to in order to only have one wife, but he has already become betrothed to Rachel before Leah became his wife. So do you think right the wrong by an act of wrong? It seems as though he took two sisters as wives because he is a man of integrity, but later in his life. Engagement in ancient Near Eastern culture is marriage, just not consummated, and the only way to break off an engagement is by issuing a certificate of divorce stating that she is no longer pleasing or unfaithful. Yeah, no, so exactly, like, it's funny because we don't get any kind of opinion from God or from the writer of the book as to who was in the wrong here, other than that we know Laban was in the wrong. We aren't told if Jacob's actions were justified, but we do know that Laban was in the wrong for deceiving Jacob. Laban shouldn't have deceived Jacob. He should have told him the truth about how things worked in their culture, or he shouldn't have lied to him, right? So that's first of all. But whether Jacob's actions are justified or not, it still isn't justified that he loves Rachel more than Leah. Right? Like, it seems as though he is purposely mistreating Leah in favor of Rachel, which that we know is wrong, because even God himself, right, when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb because he's showing pity on her, right? So even God is saying that at the very least, Jacob is not justified in loving Rachel more than Leah, right? At the very least, we know that. Whether his actions were justified in keeping both wives is a different thing. That actually reminds me of I had a really interesting conversation with some people here at the seminary, right? A couple of the people that I was speaking to at lunch, they were missionaries to, I won't give specific places or names or anything like that, but they were missionaries to a tribe in Africa. And in this tribe in Africa, it was common to have many wives, right? And as they're coming in and they're bringing in the gospel message and planting churches, they're preaching that having more than one wife is wrong, right? But then they started having some of these men come to the churches with 3, 4, 5, upwards of 10 wives, and they're asking, what should we do because we have 10 wives? Do we get divorced to 9 of them and keep our favorite, or what do we do? And obviously this was a dilemma because, you know, what do you do as a pastor in a church where things like that are happening? And they prayed about it and they read the Bible, and they discerned that the best way to go about it was to allow the men to keep their current wives if they had more than one, but the church would not sanction more than one marriage per man going forward, right? Like, if they were already if they already had multiple wives before they came to the church, they could keep their wives as long as they treated each of them fairly, and there was no unfaithfulness. But if they truly became a Christian, then they were not allowed to take on any more wives, was how they did it. And I think that was a really smart way of doing that. So in this instance, maybe it's the same thing, right? Maybe Jacob was justified in keeping Rachel and Leah, even though he was deceived, but he was not justified in loving Rachel more than Leah, is maybe how I would go with this. It is all week. We showed yesterday and today, and we showed tomorrow. Nice. Dude, Cole, you're going to have to let me know how that goes. I want to hear all about it. Leah was also an innocent in this, but Rachel doesn't seem to remember that until the point of the Mandrake conversation. Rachel blames Leah, while Leah sees Rachel as the problem. Rachel sees Leah as stealing her husband, but Leah sees Rachel as stealing her husband since she had him first. She didn't take the husband from her at all. She was forced into it by her father. She didn't have a choice. Yeah, exactly. And I think this rivalry is ultimately stemming from how Jacob treats them. If Jacob treated both of them fairly, then I don't think there would have been any need for these discussions of, favorites and being stolen and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of is like, if Jacob was doing the right thing and loving them equally, then this wouldn't have been so much of a problem that they would be talking about and having to worry about. At least in my mind, is how that makes sense to me. So that's what I would say, at least. But it's definitely a complicated situation. I mean, no matter what, Laban is definitely in the wrong for deceiving Jacob. Although, it's not as clear. It's definitely not as clear if Jacob was justified or not in keeping both the wives. I'd say he might have been justified in keeping both Rachel and Leah, but not justified in treating Rachel favorably, is what I would say. But okay, let me pull up another chart for you guys, because this second half of the this chapter 30 part, we see like a whole bunch of kids born. It's like every other sentence, right? So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Reuben. So Reuben's the firstborn, and then again she conceived and bore a son, and then again she conceived and bore a son, and then again she conceived and bore a son. So like there's a whole bunch of kids that are being born, and it's between 4 women. It's not just Rachel and Leah. It's actually between Rachel, Leah, and both Rachel and Leah's servants. And I want to get into that too. So Jacob, family tree. So let me look this up so that I can, let me look this up so that you guys can get a good idea of, like, where the 12 sons come from. Right, so here's a chart. So, like, we have the same thing. Move this over a little bit. So, Leah is the older sister, right? And she bears the most sons. So she has the first, second, third, and fourth born sons, which are Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. And then later on in her life, she gives birth to 2 more sons, Issachar and Zebulon. And it also mentions that she has a daughter named Dinah. So Leah, the older sister, has a lot of sons, whereas Rachel, the younger sister, has only 2 sons, and they are the 11th and 12th born sons, the very last 2 of them. And those are Joseph, which is, the coat of many colors, goes to Egypt, becomes the Pharaoh's servant, stuff like that. That Joseph. And then Benjamin. So these 2 characters are going to be very important later on. But Jacob also has kids with Rachel's servant and Leah's servant. So with Leah's servant Zilpah, he has 2 sons, Gad and Asher. And then with Bilhah, Rachel's servant, he has Dan and Naphtali, right? So this is where the 12 tribes of Israel are going to come from, right? these become the 12 tribes, right? Because Jacob will be renamed into Israel, right? Because he's the father of Israel. So 12 sons, and these are the 12 sons. 6 of them from Leah, and then 2 from Zilpah, 2 from Bilhah, and 2 from Rachel, and then also Dinah. So, if you needed a better picture as to all of the sons, this is a good picture for it. But the fact that Jacob had kids with his servants is another interesting parallel, right? So we're talking about this idea of generational sin being passed down between generations and paralleled stories, right? And where does this story sound familiar, right? Let me find it. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Then Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah said, "Good fortune." So she named him Gad. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah said, "Happy am I, for the woman will call me happy." So she named him Asher, right? And then the same thing with Rachel, right? Where's that at? When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister, and she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I shall die." Jacob became very angry with Rachel and said, "Am I in the place of God who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" Then she said, "Here is my maid Bilhah. Go into her so that she may bear upon my knees, and that I too may have children through her." This is exactly what Abraham and Sarah did. Like, this is the exact story. This exact same thing happened, right? So, in Abraham's story, him and Sarah couldn't have any kids, right? And Sarah was frustrated, and she says, "Abraham, I can't have any kids, so why don't you take my servant, Hagar, and have a kid through her, so that you can still have a son by me?" This is the exact same thing. Rachel can't have any kids, and she just says, "Hey, Jacob, why don't you just take my servant and have a kid with her so that we can have a kid?" It's the exact same story. It's the exact same sin. And this is just to go and show even further this idea of these generational sins that are being passed down. These same, like in the same way that Isaac repeated the sin of Abraham by lying about his wife being his sister, in the same way Jacob now is repeating another sin of Abraham, that being that whenever he couldn't have kids, he slept with his wife's servant and had a kid through them. But the crazy thing is that even though Jacob is doing these things that aren't pleasing to God, right? Even though he's doing these things like sleeping with his wife's servants to have kids, and this isn't something that God would have wanted, it's funny because God still uses these bad things for good. Right? Like, he takes the bad things that happen because as a result of their sins, and he uses them to use something that can be better, that can be used for his will in the world, right? Like the very popular phrase, "What the enemy meant for evil, God is turning into good." In the same way that, like, God, I imagine, didn't plan for Jacob to be deceived and to have 2 wives, and then also for Jacob to sleep with their servants. But that being said, as a result of those sins, Jacob now has 12 sons that God is going to turn into the 12 tribes of Israel. So even though it wasn't what God intended, he's still going to use it for something good, which is kind of cool, I gotta say. So out of curiosity, do you guys know which of Jacob's 12 sons do not become part of the 12 tribes of Israel? Because I know Joseph doesn't become a tribe of Israel, and Joseph's 2 sons become tribes instead. But that would make 13. So do you guys know which of Jacob's other 12 sons doesn't become a tribe of Israel? Because I know Joseph doesn't, and I know one of his other sons doesn't become a tribe of Israel, but I don't remember which one. Do you guys know off the top of your head? Just out of curiosity. Afterwards, she bore a daughter and named her Dinah. Yeah. So you know, Leah has these 6 sons, and then also a daughter, Dinah. And then after Jacob has these 6 sons with Leah, and then 2 sons with Zilpah, and then 2 sons with Bilhah, then God remembers Rachel, and he opens her womb, and she conceives 2 more sons for Jacob, that being Joseph, and then in a little bit here, Benjamin. So Rachel does get to have sons in the end, but she gets to have the last 2 sons, is how that turns out. But yeah, so 12 tribes of Israel. Levi? Well, the tribe of Levi becomes the Levites, right? Gosh, I'm blanking. Yeah, so Joseph later split into 2 half-tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So is it they have no inheritance and also didn't labor in Egypt? Yeah, well, the Levites... So is it the 12 tribes plus the Levites? Is that what you mean? Like there's the 12 tribes of Israel and then plus the tribe of Levi is like not counted as one of the 12 tribes? Is that what you're saying? Because yeah, they just lived off of the things that were given to them by the other tribes. Like they didn't have their own land or anything like that. Yeah, no, I guess that is what it is, because thus the tribes received an allotment were the 11 or the 10 tribes plus Manasseh and oh wait, what in the world? Yeah, because Levi is not listed here. So yeah, it must be the 12 tribes plus Levi. Okay, so that makes sense. So then that's why Levi... So there are still... So it isn't that one of Joseph's sons doesn't become a tribe. It's just that Levi isn't counted as one of the 12 tribes. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then if you want to see, let me move it over here real quick. This is the land allotment for how the tribes are going to be split up later on. So like later on, whenever like they become like a kingdom and the land is all split up, this is how the land is going to be split up. So Simeon, Judah, Reuben, Gad, Ephraim, Dan, Manasseh, Issachar, Zebulun, Naphtali, and Asher, right? And then there's these other lands. Moab is the sons of Lot's daughters, and then Edom is the sons of Esau. This is Philistia with the Philistines, and then Egypt is down in this area that's not on the map. You'll notice that the tribes multiplied greatly the more they were afflicted by Egypt, but when it comes to the census, Levites were the only ones who didn't multiply greatly because they weren't afflicted and thus exempt from that blessing given to the tribes. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense to me. I can probably pull up those verses if needed. Yeah, I mean, honestly, why not? Let's go for it. Also, I'm going to bring out my handy dandy Matthew Henry so that we can go through that as well and see if there's anything interesting that he says on this passage. So, 29. So I'll just kind of read through, or I'll try and like find some interesting portions that it talks about and read them through. Okay, so here we go. Here we see 1. Rachel's humility and industry. She keeps her father's sheep. 2. Jacob's tenderness and affection. When he understood that this was his kinswoman, he was wonderfully anxious to serve her. It is groundless conceit which some of the Jewish writers have that Jacob, when he kissed Rachel, wept because he had been set upon in his journey by Eliphaz, the eldest son of Esau, at the command of his father, and robbed of all his money and jewels which his mother had given him when she sent him away. It was plain that it was his passion for Rachel and the surprise of this happy meeting that drew those tears from his eyes. Laban, though none of the best-humored men, bade him welcome, was satisfied in the account he gave of himself, and of the reason of his coming in such poor circumstance. Also in regards to Rachel, let me copy-paste that real quick so we can read it. I'll pull it up for everybody. Another thing that the text is asking, what is the work that Rachel did that merited a great reward? Something in this story is the reason why Jeremiah writes this. Okay, sweet. So let me pull up another tab so we can read that passage. Thus says the Lord, keep your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for there is a reward for your work, says the Lord. They shall come back from the land of the enemy. There is hope for your future, says the Lord. Your children shall come back to their own country. So this is, I'm assuming, during the Babylonian exile, right? Like they were being afflicted, and they shall come back from the land of the enemy. There's hope for the future. Your children shall come back to their own country. I'm assuming that's what this is talking about. The fair contract made between Laban and Jacob during the month. Okay, so here's another interesting thing. Jacob's honest performance of his part of the bargain in verse 20. Jacob honestly served out his 7 years. They seemed to him but a few days for the love that he had for Rachel, as if it were more his desire to earn her than to have her. And then, a little bit further, the base cheat which Laban put upon him when he was out of his time, he put Leah into his arms instead of Rachel. Verse 23. This was Laban's sin. He wronged both Jacob and Rachel. It is easy to observe here how Rachel was paid in his own coin. He had cheated his own father when he pretended to be Esau, and now his father-in-law cheated him. Right, so that's saying what I was saying. Like, Jacob had already deceived his own father, and he's already committed all of these sins of deceiving and lying, and now he's getting his own medicine by being deceived by his uncle Laban. Although it also mentions that Rachel is also cheated by this sin too. Like, it's not just Jacob who suffers here, it's Rachel too. So the excuse and atonement Laban made for the cheat. 1. The excuse was frivolous. It must not be so done in our country. There was no such custom of his country as he pretends, only he banters Jacob with it and laughs at his mistake. His compounding the matter did but make bad worse. We will give thee this also, in verse 27. Hereby he drew Jacob into the sin and snare and disquiet of multiplying wives, which remains a blot of his eschaton. Honest Jacob did not design it. He could not refuse Rachel, for he had espoused her. Still less could he refuse Leah, for he had married her. So, Altus, that's exactly what you were talking about, right? He was already espoused to Rachel, so he had to continue to work for her to marry her. But now that he's been deceived and married Rachel, he can't refuse her either. The polygamy of the patriarchs was, in some measure, excusable in them because there was a reason. Because though there was a reason against it as ancient as Adam's marriage, yet there was no express command against it, right? So this is essentially saying that Jacob and the other patriarchs could be excused for having multiple wives because God had not yet commanded to not have more than one wife, right? We haven't gotten to the Ten Commandments and Sinai and the rest of the law by Moses, and that's whenever we get the laws of not having more than one wife. So essentially, he's saying here, because the law had not been written that commands against polygamy, Jacob is in some way excused from it. So he quotes here further, "It was in them a sin of ignorance. It will by no means justify the practice nowadays when God's will is plainly made known that one man and one woman only must be joined together." And he quotes Dr. Lightfoot, "Makes Leah and Rachel to be figures of the two churches, the Jews under the law and the Gentiles under the gospel. The younger, the more beautiful and more in the thoughts of Christ when he came in the form of a servant, but the other, like Leah, was the first embraced." So regarding the Levites, Exodus 1:12, Numbers 1:47 to 54, and Numbers 3:15 to 22. Compare that to all the other tribes, and they had half as much as the least populated tribe. Yeah, exactly, because they didn't have land, they didn't have resources, they didn't have anything. They just lived off of like the food that came to them from the sacrifices. Like they lived off of that meat, and they lived near the tabernacle and stuff like that, and they traveled with it and all that stuff. So they were just kind of like chilling, doing like specifically, like the Levites were called specifically to just do God's work, whereas all the other tribes did everything else, right? Like they did all the rest of the work and the army and the war and the crops and the like getting animals and all that kind of stuff, whereas the Levites were specifically called to devote their whole lives to just, taking care of the tabernacle and being the ones close to God and stuff like that. Torah also just says a king may not take many wives, not more than one, and many within rabbinic was understood to be more than 12. So are you saying it's justified to have more than one wife? Like in the Old Testament law, or? Because I've never read it that way, at least. But regarding a non-king, there isn't a specific ruling as far as I'm aware, but the intent spirit of law could be understood differently in many of these cases, but a concubine isn't breaking the law because adultery only pertains to a married woman, not a single woman. Interesting. See, I'd never read the Old Testament like that, to be honest. It's impossible to marry without consummating with an unmarried woman in the Torah. Yeah, but I still, whenever I read the Old Testament, I still find it to be against polygamy, right? Like how do you marry someone? You have to sleep with someone who isn't married. Yeah, well, you go through the process of marriage and become consummated together. But I don't know. I've always read the Old Testament as against polygamy, and the New Testament's definitely against polygamy. That's for sure. But I've always read the Old Testament as being against polygamy too. Like how it's talked about in the prophets. God is angry at his people for going out and being with other men when they should be being faithful to him, and every time that we have an instance where one of the men has more than one woman, it causes problems. Like right here in this chapter, for instance, Jacob has more than one wife, and it causes problems in the family because now one is loved more than the other. And the same thing happens with David and Solomon and all of them, and it's never seen as a good thing that they have more than one wife. It's always kind of seen as something that's looked down on. That's not a good thing that they have more than one wife, at the very least. It's at the very least implied that it's a bad thing. Wild Metacham appears. Okay, so where did I leave off here? You not refuse. Okay, yeah. So the polygamy of the patriarchs was in some measure excusable in them because there was a reason against it as ancient as Adam's marriage. Yet there was no express command against it. It was in them a sin of ignorance. It will by no means justify the like practice now, when God's will is plainly made known that one man and one woman only must be joined together. And then it talks about the example of Rachel and Leah being like the two churches, the Jews and the Gentiles. And then verses 31 to 35, we have here the birth of 4 of Jacob's sons, all by Leah. Observe, 1, that Leah who was less beloved, was blessed with children. When Rachel was denied that blessing, the names she gave her children were expressive of her respectful regards both to God and to her husband. She called her firstborn Reuben with this pleasant thought, now will my husband love me, and her third son Levi joined with this expectation. Now will my husband be joined unto me. She thankfully, actually, that's something I never thought of before. Levi so her son Levi means joined. So that almost seems symbolic of the idea that the Levites are the ones that are joining God and his people. I never thought of it in that way before. Anyways, now will my husband be joined unto me. She thankfully acknowledges the kind providence of God in it. The Lord hath looked upon my affliction. The Lord hath heard that I was hated. He therefore has given me this son. Her fourth she called Judah, which means praise, saying, now will I praise the Lord. And this was he of whom, as concerning the flesh, Christ came. Right, so Christ comes from the line of Judah, right, the son Judah, fourth son of Leah. He descended from whose name was praise, for he is our praise. Is Christ formed in my heart? Now I will praise the Lord. Yeah, Torah-wise, polygamy is acceptable. Rabbinically, it is forbidden. And it was frowned upon during Jesus' day due to the rabbinic understanding of the complications and selfishness that stems from it, because sex should not be a commodity as people treat it, but an intimate act. And it takes away from the intimacy unless you and your wife are extremely righteous, where even your sexual experiences are only done for the... Yeah, no, exactly. So, right, like, the idea is that, like, Israel, like, the Israelites and the Jewish people understood that polygamy was wrong, right? Like, during the time of the prophets in Israel, it was already understood by that time that polygamy was wrong. And by the time of Jesus, whenever it was the Jewish parties, they also understood that polygamy was wrong, and they didn't allow it. And then by the time that you get to the New Testament, whenever Paul writes about it, and whenever Jesus talks about it, it's very clearly said in the New Testament that, yeah, no, like polygamy is absolutely wrong. Like, Paul talks about that very, very extensively. So, yeah, I guess, like, in the law of Moses, it's probably, I don't recall it being explicitly denied, like, in the law of Moses in the Pentateuch. But it's definitely understood by Israel during the time of the prophets that it's wrong, and it's definitely understood by the Jewish leaders that it's wrong. And then obviously Paul and Jesus will talk about the idea, like, yeah, polygamy is, like, pretty wrong, and like Paul will even call it a sin. And a Torah scholar should not have more than one wife, but it is recommended that a Torah scholar has at least had a wife at some point, because it creates a better ability to understand and work with others. For women, yeah, no, I think that's very similar for pastors. For women are the helpmate against opposing you, and the children help you understand that not everyone can be on the same level as you. So a good rabbi views converts as a newborn babies and can work as peers. Wives who oppose but not only help but from... Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like, you know, in churches here in the West, like, that's kind of an understood thing as well among pastors, is that if you're going to become a pastor, you don't have to be married to be a pastor of a church. However, like, it's pretty recommended that you do become married, because it allows you to help people through problems in marriage and through a million other things that you couldn't do if you weren't married. Although, like, God doesn't call everybody to become married. Like, Paul, for instance, talks about the idea, I don't remember what book, but one of the letters of Paul talks about how if you, like, you know, some men won't be called by God to marry anybody, and they will be called to dedicate their entire lives to God's cause. So in the same way, like, God will call some people to become married and some people to not become married. Some people will be called to celibacy. Although pastors who do become married can help out people of their congregation in a way that a non-married pastor probably wouldn't be able to. So there is that to keep in mind. So what else we got here? So we went up to verse 24 of 30, right? Yeah, 24. So we got a little bit more in this commentary here. Here we go. We have here the bad consequences of that strange marriage which Jacob made with the two sisters. Here is an unhappy disagreement between him and Rachel, occasioned not so much by her own barrenness as her own sister's fruitfulness. Rachel frets. She envied her sister. Envy is grieving at the good of another, than which no sin is more offensive to God, nor more injurious to our neighbor and ourselves. Jacob chides, and most justly. He loved Rachel, and therefore reproved her for what she said amiss. Note, faithful reproofs are products in and instances of true affection. He was angry, not at the person, but at the sin. He expressed himself so as to show his displeasure. It was a very grave and pious reply which Jacob gave to Rachel's peevish demand, "Am I in God's stead?" The Chaldee paraphrases it well. "Dost thou ask sons of me? Oughtest thou not to ask them from before the Lord?" The Arabic reads it, "Am I above God? Can I give thee that which God denies thee?" So Jacob isn't reproving Rachel for not being able to have kids. He's reproving Rachel for being envious of her sister. And then this leads to an unhappy agreement between him and the two handmaids. At the persuasion of Rachel, he took Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife, that, according to the usage of those times, his children by her might be adopted and owned as her mistress's children. She would rather have children by reputation than none at all, children that she might fancy to be her own and call her own, though they were not so. She takes a pleasure in giving them names that carry in them nothing but marks of emulation with her sister, as if she had overcome her. At law, she calls the first son of her handmaid Dan, which means judgment, saying, "God hath judged me," in verse 6. That is, given sentence in my favor. In battle, she calls the next Naphtali, which means wrestlings, saying, "I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed," as if all Jacob's sons must be born men of contention. At the persuasion of Leah, he took Zilpah, her handmaid, to wife also, in verse 9. Two sons Zilpah bore to Jacob, whom Leah looked upon herself as entitled to, in token of which she called one Gad, in verse 11, promising herself a little troop of children. The other she called Asher, which means happy, thinking herself happy in him. There was much amiss in the contest and competition between these two sisters, yet God brought good out of this evil. Thus Jacob's family was replenished with 12 sons, heads of the thousands of Israel, from whom the celebrated 12 tribes descended and were named. Yeah, so what's being said here by Matthew Henry is exactly what I was saying earlier, right? Like, the idea is that this was a bad thing that they did. It was bad that Rachel and Leah were competing with each other for kids, and it was bad that both of them gave their servants to Jacob to sleep with so that the servants could have sons as well, right? This was not ideal, this was wrong, and it shouldn't have been done. But the point is, as I was saying earlier, that even though these bad things were happening and that they were doing these bad things, God was taking the bad things that the enemy meant for evil and he was turning them into good. And even though this wasn't what God had planned, he still was able to use these 12 sons from these two sisters and their servants to become the nation of Israel, where, you know, the rest of this book comes from. And then there's one more section here. I'll just read the whole thing. So for verse 14 to 24 of chapter 30, Reuben, a little lad, 5 or 6 years old, playing in the field, found mandrakes, or weeds. Oh, here we go. It actually explains. It is uncertain what they were, either fruits or flowers that were very pleasant to the smell. There are products of the earth in the exposed fields, as well as in the planted protected gardens, that are very valuable and useful. It is a laudful custom of the devout Jews, when they find pleasure, suppose in eating an apple, to lift up their hearts and say, Blessed be he that made this fruit pleasant, or in smelling a flower, Blessed be he that made this flower sweet. Some think these mandrakes were jessamine flowers. Whatever they were, Rachel could not see them in Leah's hands, where the child had placed them, but she must covet them. So, interesting. So Altus, you were saying that the mandrakes were weeds, but this commentary seems to be suggesting that they were, like flowers and stuff. Like flower, well, it says that it's unknown, but they were, like, probably flowers or fruits. Here it is, the requirement of judges like Paul, who was a member of the Sanhedrin. A Sanhedrin does not sit on the Sanhedrin a very old person, one who is castrated, or one who has no children with his wife. Someone who has not raised children may lack compassion, and it goes without saying that cruel persons are not eligible. Interesting. Cruel persons are not eligible. That's a really interesting way of putting that. It kind of reminds me of, what Paul says about the requirements for becoming a pastor in the pastoral epistles, but not entirely. Like, it's reminiscent, but not entirely there. So that's interesting. It seems he probably, like, got some kind of, The mandrake's word being used as a know-nothing weed, we can also get this from the context that it is during the wheat harvest, the earliest harvest, which is likened to first fruits. It's the worst of the worst. Okay, so it could have been some kind of like, for instance, I don't know if you guys have this, but here where I live, we have dandelions, right? And they're like a little yellow flower that also happens to be a weed, right? Like, it's kind of pretty, but it's also like not a great crop to have around. Like, it's actually pretty bad for everything else around it. Oh, yeah, like exactly what I was just saying. So the foliage during the time would be like dandelions. That was like the exact thing that I was just thinking. That's crazy that we were both thinking the same thing. So yeah, I was thinking like it's kind of like a flower, but also not. Like, it's a pretty little thing that they were picking, right? But it wasn't like a good crop. Like, dandelions are a weed, but they're kind of pretty at the same time. And it would be infant ones, like not even fully bloomed, like crap handful of weeds. Yeah, so like dandelions, whenever they're fully bloomed, they like kind of turn a little bit ugly, but before they're fully bloomed, they have like this nice little yellow look to them. So maybe it was like before they became ugly, like while they were still yellow before they became ugly, maybe. That's interesting though. So I'll keep reading what Matthew Henry says on it. Some think that these mandrakes were jessamine flowers. Actually, let me look that up, because I don't know what a jessamine flower is. Jessamine flowers. Also known as yellow jasmine, is a twining... So these things... So Matthew Henry is saying that it might have been these things. I mean, they kind of look like dandelions, but not really. I don't know. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to look that up. Whatever they were, Rachel could not see them in Leah's hands where the child had placed them, but she would covet them. So then Matthew Henry is going to quote Bishop Patrick. Bishop Patrick very well suggests here that the true reason of this contest between Jacob's wives for his company was for his company, and their giving him their maids to be his wives was the earnest desire they had to fulfill the promise made to Abraham, that his seed should be as the stars of heaven for multitude. And he thinks it would have been below the dignity of this sacred history to take such particular notice of these things if there had not been some such a great consideration in them. Leah was now blessed with 2 sons. The first was she called Issachar, which means a hire, reckoning herself well repaid for her mandrakes. The other she called Zebulun, which means dwelling, owning God's bounty for her. God had endowed me with a great dowry. She reckons a family of children not a bill of charges, but a good dowry. Mention is made in verse 21 of the birth of a daughter, Dinah, because of the following story concerning her. So that, I guess that's one thing we probably should have mentioned already. It's very possible that Jacob had other it's very possible that Jacob had other daughters than just Dinah, because typically the daughters were not mentioned in the stories unless if they were important. And Dinah is definitely mentioned here because Dinah is important in an upcoming story. So it seems that Dinah is mentioned here specifically because there's going to be a later story with her involved in it. But it is also very possible that Jacob had other daughters at some point and they're just not mentioned here. Oh gosh, wait. But after you, as a parent, have worked your entire child's life as a caretake, only giving and never receiving, but the weeds are the first thing where the child is able to give back to the parent. This is the first fruit of the child. It's not great. It's like a macaroni art picture from preschool. But it's the first thing you get where the child works to give the parent something and it becomes a treasure. And yeah, I'm assuming that's why, she's jealous. This is why they are important. Rachel can't have children of her own, but she can have his macaroni art. Maybe, too, she can feel like, yeah, no, so that's exactly what I was thinking, right? And that's what Matthew Henry was saying, right? The idea is not that they were special. The idea is that Rachel was jealous of them, right? So where it was saying here, whatever they were, Rachel could not see them in Leah's hand, but she was coveting them, right? So the idea is that she didn't even know what they were, but she was coveting the idea that she couldn't have a child to give her flowers or whatever was being given, right? So it's not like what was actually given. It's just the idea of she's jealous that she can't have kids, and Leah's kids are great and they're giving her like these gifts and stuff like that, even if they're like very odd and stupid gifts. So then there's one final paragraph here. Rachel fruitful at last, in verse 22. Rachel called her son Joseph, which in Hebrew is akin to 2 words of a contrary significance. Asaph, he has taken away my reproach, and Jasaph, the Lord shall add to me another son. So that's all that Matthew Henry says. Ugh. So I'll put that back up there. But yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, I think that's everything that I wanted to say on this chapter. Do you guys have anything else in mind that you want to talk about with it? Because I pretty much talked about everything that I wanted to talk about before coming into it. Although, if you guys have anything else that you want to comment on or talk about, let me know, because we can definitely do that. It was only after Rachel put aside her anger and jealousy and put herself in Leah's shoes that she then had her womb opened and was able to bear children. So, similar to Jacob and Esau, it was deceit, anger, and then compassion, giving back what belonged to them in reconciliation. Huh. So where do you get that part at? Out of curiosity, because I didn't see that. I just saw the, this part. Then God remembered Rachel and opened her womb. I didn't, where do you see the part where Rachel gives up her anger? Maybe I missed something. Was it earlier? We harvest. Yeah, Levi will be joined. Judah, I will praise. Naphtali resembles the word wrestled. Fortune, happy is Asher. Issachar resembles my hire. Zebulon is honor. He adds, yeah, so this is just, yeah, Simeon, he has her. Yeah, this is just kind of like footnotes for each of the sons and what their names mean. It's a change of how she speaks in 13 to 19. And Leah said, happy am I. In the days of wheat, harvest Reuben went. Rachel said to Leah, please give me son of your son. But she said to her, it is a small matter that you have taken away my husband. Will you take away my son's mandrake? Rachel said, I'll with you tonight for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, must come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So he lay with her for that night, and God heeded Leah, and she came. Oh, so it's kind of like, okay, I guess I can see it. Yeah, I guess I can see it. I didn't read it that way the first time, but now that you put it that way, I can see it now. It's like kind of this idea of like, you give me these mandrakes and yeah, there you go. Like like I'm not stealing your husband away from you. Yeah, so like Leah is claiming you would take my mandrakes just as you've taken my husband, right? And then Rachel's like, no, just you can lie with him tonight for the son's mandrakes. Like she's trying to, like, I guess I can see it. Like it's not like an anger thing anymore. It's like, oh, well, just do it then. Like I'm not stealing him from you. Like you can have him tonight. Like kind of a deal. I guess I never read it in that way. Makes sense. I guess I can see it. What she did is repair the relationship and bring the family together again. Unification of family, which is our goal, to bring brothers and sisters together. Yeah. No, I see it. I definitely see it now. And then the same thing will obviously happen in a couple chapters whenever Esau and Jacob make up. So that'll be cool. Alright, so do you guys want to go raid somebody here in a second? I mean, we can do prayer requests and the announcements, and then I can give you guys a benediction and we can go raid somebody real quick. What do you guys think of that? Well, first of all, do you guys have any prayer requests in chat? Anything that I can be praying for you guys, or be praying for anybody else that you know? While you guys are typing up prayer requests, I have a couple on the part of, like, us and people that we know. So Evan, right, the other guy who usually joins me every Wednesday, he's been fairly sick recently, so be praying for him. I guess that's why he wasn't able to make it tonight, is because he's been feeling a little under the weather recently. So be praying for Evan, because he's been having a little bit harsh lately, and I feel pretty bad for him. Pray for Jake, because he also wasn't able to make it this week because he's on vacation, and they are definitely sorely missed this week. We also have a prayer for, pray for someone I know. She's pretty close to me. She's going to be moving pretty soon to start like a residency program. So she's really, really stressed out about that because she has to move away from her family and, like start her whole new life, like halfway across the globe. And she's really stressed about that. So please be praying for her. 'Cause she's definitely stressed out right now. So yeah, prayer for Evan because he's a little bit sick. Prayer for Jake that he can have a good vacation because he's had a lot that he's been going through, so he needs some time off. Prayer for, I'll leave her unnamed, but prayer for her because she's going to be starting a residency program and moving away from everyone that she knows pretty soon, because she feels God's calling her to do it, and she's really stressed out about it. So be praying for her as well. I guess prayer for me so that I can get through Hebrew. I mean, I'm not stressing about it all that much. I'm actually doing pretty well in the class, but it definitely is taking up a lot of my time every week to study Hebrew. I have the book right here, so it's pretty big. But yeah, I guess prayer for that as well. Yeah, but chat, if you guys have any prayer requests, real quick, either leave them in the chat, or we do have the prayer request channel in our Discord as well. Let me open that up. Discord. So if you want to join the Discord and put prayer requests in there as well. Oh, actually, there is one more prayer request. One of the channel, one of the people put in the prayer request section. They had their Clash Royale account hacked. Which, I mean, they love that game. It's like one of their favorites. I know it's like a small thing, but still, pray for them so that, you know, they can get their Clash Royale clan back because it was hacked. But yeah, pray for them. But yeah, if you guys don't have any prayer requests, I can pray for us real quick and then give you guys a benediction. We can go raid another channel. What do you guys think? All right. So I'll pray for us real quick, and then we'll go find a channel. So, Father in heaven, thank you so much for today. I thank you so much for it and how beautiful it was out today. I thank you that even though my life is very busy right now, that you are still with me and strengthening me and allowing me to do the things that I still enjoy, like doing these streams. And I thank you for calling me to do these streams. I would have never thought of doing these streams if you hadn't called me to it. And now that I'm doing it, I can't thank you enough for calling me and my friends to do this every week. It's one of the highlights of my week, being able to come here and talk about your word with people from all across the globe, from all these different traditions, and just talk about what it means and how we can change our lives for the better through it. I thank you for coming here and speaking to all of us tonight. I hope that me and everyone else here all learned something new tonight, and that we might be able to take something with us into our lives ahead, so that we might come closer to you and closer to your will, and that we might further your kingdom in the world. I pray that everything that I said here and that everything that was said in chat was pleasing and honoring unto you and to the glory of you. And I pray that your Holy Spirit was resting on this conversation and speaking through me the whole time. I thank you so much for all of my friends who helped me put this together, even the ones that aren't able to be here this week. And I thank you for everybody who came by the chat today to relax for a little bit and chat. I pray for Sparky. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to hit the mic. I pray for Sparky, who came in earlier today, and he's, I guess, doing competition MMA now. So I know he's been looking for something like that for a while now, and I'm sure he's having a great time with it. So be with him in that, strengthen him, help him to be safe, and to have a good time in it. If that's what you want him to do, I'm sure he will succeed in it. I just pray that as we go into our week ahead, that we might be honoring unto you and closer to your will for our lives, and all these things in your name. Amen. All right, so real quick, I'll announce one more time before we go raid the channel. Two things. First of all, the weekly challenge. So starting today and going till next week on Wednesday, the weekly challenge is to donate to a good cause. It could be to a church, it could be to a charity, it could be to an organization, and it doesn't even have to be all that much money. It can just be $1 for all that. You know, like, it could be $1, it could be more than that. Whatever you feel God is calling you to donate to, and however much you're feeling God wants you to donate, that's what we're doing. I'll be doing it as well. So I will be praying and asking that God will lead me to wherever he wants me to donate my money. So if you want to join us, this is our way of bettering the world around us and working together as a community of believers to enact God's will in the world. And we just want to help make the world a better place. So if you want to help us in that, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing that as our weekly challenge starting tonight and going to next Wednesday. I'll be doing it as well. So if you want to join us in that, feel free. And also, one more thing, we have our own charity that we're doing right now. So let me type that into the chat as well. !charity. So we are trying to raise money right now. If you can see it just above my head, we have a goal me and my friends, we have a thing that we do every single year around Christmas time where we raise a whole bunch of goods like money and food and clothes and all of that stuff, and we give it to the, less fortunate in our area. So if you want to donate to that, we would love to, we want to raise as much money as possible for this donation goal so that we can give out more to those who need it during this Christmas time. So if you feel obliged to donate to that, we have some goals that we're trying to reach. If not, the power of prayer is also something that works wonders. So if you want to pray for it, honestly, prayer works wonders. So if you're able to, at the very least, please pray for it, because we need as much prayer as we can get for it. But yeah, before I send you guys back out and we go raid a channel, I want to give you guys a benediction. I'll keep it short and sweet today. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. That's a really short one that I learned from one of my mentors in my undergrad. He was an amazing person, and he always used to love using that one every time he concluded anything. He would just end it by saying, go in peace to love and serve the Lord. And that's what I wanted to ask of you guys. Just go in peace to love and serve the Lord. So real quick, let's go find a Christian channel to go raid. Oh, we got a Stardew Valley. Do you want to go raid that one? How to know if we truly love the Lord? Let's play Super Mario RPG. First playthrough, Tears of the Kingdom. Exploring the Catcom casual family friendly. What do we think? Who do we think we should raid? I'm thinking, well, probably one of these Tears of the Kingdom guys. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, get your tiger by the dough, and an orange line, and go out, Y-O-U. Okay, we're gonna go raid this guy. Sapphire Drew, variety streamer who likes to play a mix of retro, indie, and sometimes modern or mobile games. My favorite genres are side-scrolling action platforms and action RPGs. I believe that gaming is way more fun when chatting with others, so don't be shy, come be a part of the fun. Alright, let's go do this guy. So, I'm going to type it into the chat real quick, and if you guys are new here, here's what we do. We go into this guy's chat, we let them know God loves them, and we just chat for a little bit, show them the same type of love that you guys would show me. So just go in there, let them know that God loves them, show them a good time, all that good stuff. And yeah, so next week on Tuesday, we're going to be doing party game night again. So if you want to join in on that, feel free. We would love to have you there. We're probably going to be playing Among Us, open lobbies. So if you want to join in, we'll have the join code on the screen. You can join in and have a good time with us. If you're not able to make it next Tuesday night, we're also going to be doing Bible study again next week on Wednesday. We'll be finishing up chapter 30. So yeah, that's what it'll look like next week. We're going to be doing game night Tuesday night, party games, and then Wednesday night we will be doing Bible study stream again of chapter 30. So yeah, let's go raid this guy, let them know that God loves them, and show them a good time. I guess I will hopefully see you guys next week, and I love all of you guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate every single one of you. Peace.